Am I the jerk for changing the locks after my roommate invited her boyfriend to live with us without asking? I never thought I'd be in this situation, but after months of frustration, I finally snapped. I need some outside perspective to figure out if I went too far. I'm a 26-year-old woman working in marketing. About a year ago, I moved into a 2-bedroom apartment with Kelly, who I met through a mutual friend. We weren't close friends before moving in together, but we got along well enough and both needed a roommate to afford rent in our city. We signed a 2-year lease with both our names on it, split the security deposit equally, and agreed to split all utilities and rent 50-50. For the first 6 months, everything was fine. We had different schedules, so we didn't see each other too much, but we were respectful of shared spaces and communicated well about apartment issues. I thought I had lucked out with a drama-free living situation. Then Kelly started dating Mike. At first it was normal new relationship stuff, with him coming over a few nights a week. I didn't mind, and Kelly was always considerate about noise and giving me a heads up when he would be around. But about 3 months into their relationship, things changed. I came home from work one evening to find Mike sitting on our couch playing video games on our TV. Kelly wasn't even home yet. When I asked what was going on, he said casually that Kelly had given him a key because they thought it would be easier that way. I was uncomfortable but decided to talk to Kelly about it later rather than confront Mike directly. When Kelly got home, I pulled her aside and asked about the key situation. She was dismissive, saying it wasn't a big deal and that Mike would only use it when she was home or about to be home. I reluctantly accepted this, though I wish I had pushed back harder. A week later, I came home to find Mike's stuff everywhere. A duffel bag in the living room, toiletries in our shared bathroom, food he had bought in the fridge. When Kelly came home, she dropped the bomb. Mike had been having roommate issues and needed a place to stay for just a few weeks until he found a new place. She didn't present this as a question or a discussion, but as a fact. He was already staying with us. I was shocked and angry that she hadn't consulted me before moving someone into our apartment. I reminded her that our lease specifically states that guests can only stay for a maximum of 7 consecutive days without landlord approval. I also pointed out that adding a third person would increase our utility costs and decrease my comfort in my own home, which I was paying for. Kelly promised it would be temporary, that Mike would contribute to utilities, and that they would mostly stay in her room. Against my better judgment, I agreed to give it 2 weeks. 2 weeks turned into a month turned into 2. Every time I brought it up, Kelly had a new excuse for why Mike hadn't found his own place yet. The rental market was tough, he was waiting to hear back about a job that would determine where he should live, his potential roommate situation fell through. Always something. Meanwhile, Mike made himself completely at home. He was there whether Kelly was home or not. He would cook elaborate meals and leave the kitchen a mess. He would hog the bathroom in the mornings when I was trying to get ready for work. He would invite his friends over without telling anyone. And most frustratingly, he wasn't contributing equally to the household. Despite Kelly's promise, Mike was only giving her a token amount for utilities, nowhere near a third of the actual costs. He never offered to help with rent. He ate my food without replacing it. He even broke my expensive blender and never offered to pay for repairs. I had multiple conversations with Kelly about this, but they always ended the same way. She would acknowledge my concerns, promise things would change, and then nothing would actually improve. When I suggested we officially add Mike to the lease and adjust rent accordingly, she refused, saying he couldn't afford it and it was unnecessary paperwork since this was still temporary. 4 months after Mike moved in, I reached my breaking point. I came home to find him hosting a poker night with 5 of his friends in our living room. The place reeked of smoke despite our no smoking rule, and someone had spilled beer on my laptop, which I had left on the coffee table before work. The laptop was ruined and no one offered to replace it. When I confronted Kelly about this the next day, she became defensive, saying I was being uptight and that I should have put my laptop away if I didn't want it damaged. She accused me of never giving Mike a chance and making him feel unwelcome. I realized then that nothing was going to change. The opportunity to act came when Kelly mentioned she was going to visit her parents for a long weekend, Thursday through Monday. Mike was going with her, which would give me a few days of peace and quiet. As soon as they left, I called a locksmith and had the locks changed. I also contacted our landlord, explained the situation, and provided evidence that Mike had been living there far longer than the lease allowed. The landlord was upset but directed his anger at the lease violation rather than at me, which was a relief. He agreed to provide Kelly with a formal warning about unauthorized occupants. When Kelly and Mike returned on Monday evening, they couldn't get into the apartment. Kelly called me, furious, demanding to know what was going on. I met her outside and gave her the new key, but told her it was for her only. I explained that Mike was not on the lease, had overstayed the guest policy by months, and was no longer welcome to live there. Kelly completely lost it. She screamed that I had no right to change the locks, that Mike had nowhere else to go, and that I was violating her rights as a tenant. She threatened to sue me for illegal eviction, even though Mike was never a legal tenant in the first place. Mike stood behind her, calling me every name in the book. I stood my ground, stating calmly that either Mike leaves or I would pursue formal eviction proceedings against both of them through the landlord, who was now aware of the situation. I showed her the section of our lease that she was violating and the warning from the landlord. Eventually, Kelly realized I wasn't backing down. She and Mike left to stay at a hotel, and I've been getting a barrage of angry texts from her, her friends, and even some of our mutual friends. They're saying I'm heartless for potentially making someone homeless, that changing the locks was a cruel ambush, and that I should have given them more warning or time to figure things out. I feel like I gave them months of warnings and opportunities to fix the situation, and nothing changed. Our apartment isn't big enough for 3 people, I never agreed to live with Mike, and he wasn't contributing fairly to household expenses. But the angry messages are making me second-guess myself. Kelly is now demanding that I either let Mike move back in until they find a new place, or that I move out and let them take over the lease. She's threatening to take legal action against me for changing the locks while she was away, claiming it was an illegal eviction even though I gave her a new key immediately upon her return. I don't want to live with them anymore, but I also don't want to move out and find a new place. I was here first, I've always paid my rent on time, and I haven't violated the lease. But I'm worried about the legality of what I did and whether I'm actually in the wrong here. So, am I the jerk for changing the locks after my roommate moved her boyfriend in without permission?